Front and Center. Front and Center. A focus on important and significant developments affecting the lives of Filipinos, not only in the Philippines, but also those living and working around the world. Join us in Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Good day, welcome to Front and Center, where we focus on developments in the Philippines, legislation that provides policies and directions that strives to promote a better economy for the country, issues that concern the welfare and well-being of every Filipino. All of these and more will be Front and Center. You can watch this program live on our Facebook page, that's Radyo Pilipinas World Service. You can also hear us live on audio streaming at Evox PBS Receiver app. So join us for another edition of Front and Center with your host, Jerome Toledo.
Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
And it's 11 days to go before the midterm election happening on May 12, 2025. So as the election campaign period is about to wrap up, many candidates are intensifying their campaigns to get their constituents' votes. And regions across the country are fully prepared for these elections. Meanwhile, ballot printing as well as finalization of list of candidates have already finished. And local and overseas absentee voting is ongoing right now since last 2 weeks ago. So how a citizens arm like Lente or the Legal Network for Truthful Elections with its executive director attorney Ona Caritos is preparing for this election. So last time we have spoken with the parish pastoral council for responsible voting on what are their preparations for the midterm elections. So for today, we will have the Lente or the Legal Network for Truthful Elections in this program. But first, while we await our guest from Lente, we will have a short break and we'll be right back. Front and Center returns.
Isipin ang isang lugar kung saan ang progreso at kalikasan ay magkasabay na lumalago. Sa ilalim ng Administrasyon Marcos, ginagawang posible ito ng Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority.
Sa administrasyon po ni PBBM, nilaunch po namin noong September yung Carbon Neutral Freeport Zone. Ito po ay aming goal to contribute reducing our carbon emissions.
Hindi lang ito usapin ng teknolohiya, ito ay pangako. Sa SBMA, inuuna ang pangangalaga sa kagubatan, bakawan at natural na yaman para sa hinaharap ng bawat Pilipino.
We are working towards a steady and reliable power supply that will meet the demands of today and continuously fuel our ambitions for tomorrow.
Ang kalikasan at kinabukasan ay magkasabay na pinangangalagaan. Sa pamahalaang Marcos, ang bagong Pilipinas nakikita na. Sa nagbabagong Pilipinas, patuloy ang trabaho, patuloy ang pagbabago.
Hatol ng bayan. Election Quick Facts.
Gun ban. Mula January 12 hanggang June 11, 2025 ay iiral ang gun ban sa buong bansa kasabay ng pagpasok ng election period para sa 2025 midterm elections na gaganapin sa May 12. Ang mga lalabag ay papatawan ng parusang pagkakakulong sa loob ng 1 hanggang 6 na taon, permanent disqualification from public office, at aalisan ng karapatang bumoto. Samantala, ang mga dayuhan naman na mahuhuli ay ipadireport matapos ang kanilang pagkabilanggo.
Hatol ng bayan. Election Quick Facts.
Huy, nabiktima ka na ba ng fake news sa panahon ng digital media? Learn how to spot fake news. Check the source. Kung di legit, dapat magduda. Check the purpose. Informative or troll post at clickbait lang. Check the ownership. Mapagkakatiwalaan ba ang pinagkukuhanan nito? Check the time and date. Baka naman outdated na yung news na yan, ha? SPOT. Together, let's spot fake news. Tiyakin ang katotohanan, fake news ay labanan.
A friendly message from PCO, DepEd, CHED, DSWD, DILG, PBS at Radyo Pilipinas.
Hinuhulma ang kasanayan ng manggagawang Pilipino sa ilalim ng administrasyon ni Presidente Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Katuwang ang TESDA ay patuloy ang pagtatag ng pangarap sa tulong ng SBMA Center for Excellence.
During the job fair, kinukulang na ang nag-a-apply. Kaya together with TESDA, naglagay kami ng kanilang facility at papalakihin pa namin para mas marami kaming natuturuan at titrain ng mga trabahador at makuha sila dito. Yung aming education enhancement skill for the workers, kailangan maging competitive din tayo. We can do it and we are training them to do it.
Kasama ng manggagawang Pilipino ang Administrasyong Marcos sa pagtupad ng kanilang mga pangarap. Sa pamahalaang Marcos, ang bagong Pilipinas nakikita na. Sa nagbabagong Pilipinas, patuloy ang trabaho, patuloy ang pagbabago.
Walang material na bagay na makakatumbas sa halaga ng edukasyon.
Gaya ni Pangulong Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. na hangaring mabigyan ng magandang edukasyon ang bawat batang Pilipino, ito rin ang nais ng Clark Development Corporation. Ibinahagi ni CDC President and CEO Attorney Agnes de Vanadera na katuwang nila ang OB Montessori at Bloomberry Cultural Foundation Incorporated para maipatayo ang CDC OB Bloomberry Family Care Centers para sa ating mga kababayang katutubo.
Kasama natin ang private sector para maipatayo ang isang gusali na makakatugon sa pagpapatupad ng daycare program, makakapagpatupad ng pagtuturo sa mga nanay tungkol sa health and sanitation and nutrition.
Sa nagbabagong Pilipinas, patuloy ang trabaho, patuloy ang pagbabago.
Front and center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Welcome back to Front and Center. As I mentioned earlier, so as the election campaign period is about to wrap up, many candidates are intensifying their campaigns to get their constituents' votes. So meanwhile, local and overseas absentee voting is ongoing, and regions across the country are fully prepared for this election. So how a citizens' arm like the Legal Network for Truthful Elections, or LENTE, is preparing for this. So last time we have spoken with the PPCRV, or the Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting spokesperson Dr. Arvin Serrano regarding this. And now let's have the LENTE with its officer, or the policy consultant for technological and policy reforms of the Legal Network for Truthful Elections, or LENTE. That's Attorney Helen Graido. So Attorney Helen, thank you for joining us in the program Front and Center on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Hello, good morning everyone.
Okay.
Good morning to all who are listening to your program.
Okay.
Today.
Thank you so much for joining us in the program, and thank you for accepting our call on such a short notice, Attorney Helen. So, yeah, my first question is, what is LENTE, your organization, and what does it exactly do during elections, regardless if it's a midterm election or presidential or specialized elections such as the barangay or sanggunian kabataan elections?
Okay, so LENTE is the Legal Network for Truthful Elections. So it was founded back in 2007. So it started as an election monitoring organization and eventually evolved into both an election monitoring organization and an election reformer organization. So what does that mean? So as an election reformer organization, we regularly conduct all throughout the electoral cycle purposive monitoring, data gathering, and even collaborative efforts with like-minded organizations to push for reforms that are actually grounded, that are backed by the data that we actually gather during this activity. So after data gathering, after networking, we consolidate all these efforts to push for reforms, to advocate for reforms that could be done through our election laws.
Okay, so Attorney Helen, I would like to ask this question, since LENTE is it's an organization of legal professionals monitoring the election events, like this one, the midterm election. So does Lente provide legal assistance on election-related offenses, or to anyone who commits election-related offenses, or anyone who will be facing legal actions similar to this?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Lente actually is not just composed of legal professionals and law students. We would want to call ourselves as ground volunteers. So we come from different disciplines, different organizations and communities. But our volunteers and our advocates work for are united in the fact that we work for electoral reform. And then in
Mm-hmm.
terms of legal aid, yes, we do provide legal aid, but it would given of course given the requirement to manage resources,
Mm-hmm.
so we would need to verify the cases that are being brought to us. So we would need to check if that is actually something that we can build the case on, and
Mm-hmm.
then we follow through our through legal assistance. But we do, yes, we do that, but of course it's a qualified assistance, because you would know that not all cases or not all leads
Mm-hmm.
would prosper into prosecution. So we of course we have that responsibility to first verify and check if a tip or a lead or a case can actually be built up right for prosecution.
Mm-hmm. And do you coordinate with the Commission on Elections regarding that, Attorney Helen?
Yes. Yes, we are actually partnered with the commission on several committees.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, if there's one thing that we can highlight for the midterm election is our partnership with the commission, with its committee on contrabigay. So this one is focused on combating vote buying, vote
Mm-hmm.
selling, and abuse of state resources.
Okay, so moving on to another election-related issues, Attorney Helen. How do you assess the online vote? I'm sorry. So, but before we go to the online voting issue, Attorney Helen, so what are the preparations first of Lente this midterm election?
Okay. Since we will be conducting a purposive monitoring all throughout the nation, so that will be composed of general monitoring and a new method that we would want to deploy this elections, which is the time and motion study. So
Mm-hmm.
currently, we are at the tail end of recruitment of volunteers, and we
Mm-hmm.
are in the middle of training these
Mm-hmm.
volunteers. We will be conducting refresher trainings for training sessions for these volunteers, because
Mm-hmm.
we know that they have to be equipped and they have to be very to be well versed with the tools, so we can rely on the data, and we can be sure that the data they will be providing is of good quality,
Mm-hmm.
which we can use for our reform work.
Okay. So, regarding that, so does Lante have enough time to train volunteers regarding the election monitoring? And do you have enough resources to conduct election monitoring this midterm election?
Of course, I can say that we have a surplus, but I think we have enough time, because
Mm-hmm.
this has all been planned as early as last year,
Mm-hmm.
because we have been creating and designing our tools, of course, and the tools and the method or the research is also composed of the data gatherers or the researchers or the monitors themselves. So we have been planning this for since last year, and yes, we are within well within our timeline. And when it comes to resources, I would like to say that again, we don't have a surplus, but of course
Mm-hmm.
everything is budgeted even before we start with our methodology, even before we embark on this research. Everything has already been budgeted, so we are thankful that we have
Mm-hmm.
enough to actually proceed and hopefully achieve what we need from this research effort,
Mm-hmm.
eventually in support of our advocacies.
I see. And do you have a collaboration with the PPCRV or the Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting, as well as the NAMFREL and other organizations dealing with this election event?
Yes, yes, definitely. We are in constant need to actually partner, because there
Mm-hmm.
are, for example, if there are committees under the commission, they would invite election citizen arms. So I guess that's how we collaborate and partner with each other, because we actually form committees, different committees under the commission, and also for example, the Committee on Contrabigay and the Random Manual Audit Committee,
Uh-huh.
and even Task Force KKK. So
Mm-hmm.
we are all part of that committee, because those committees actually provide a wider scope. And yeah, we it's like that. So we are part of several committees, so that's how
Mm-hmm.
we are actually designed to work with each other.
Mm-hmm. And your organization is very active right now. In before the election, is very your organization is very active when it comes to pre-election monitoring.
Yes, actually, Lente is present and active and alive, I would like to
Yeah.
say, throughout the electoral cycle, because we believe that as advocates of electoral reform, we cannot stop at
Mm-hmm.
just we cannot just start on election day and stop a few weeks after, because the work actually is the work of
Mm-hmm.
consolidating the data, analyzing the data actually happens right after elections,
Uh-huh.
because we that's the path to pushing for legal reforms
Mm-hmm.
through our committee on suffrage with the House of Representatives, and also with the Senate. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where a huge part of our work also happens.
I see. And talking about the election reforms, the Commission on Election just or implemented the online voting system exclusively for our overseas Filipino workers who are not able to vote. And the reason why the online voting system is introduced by the Commission on Elections, because our overseas Filipino workers are not able to exercise their right to vote during the elections due to proximity issues as well as logistical issues. So,
Mm-hmm.
for this issue, Attorney Helen, how do you assess the online voting in overseas voting, which is happening right now? And do you have volunteers that are monitoring this abroad in our embassies and consulates?
Okay, if you would ask me if I how would I assess the effort to implement an internet voting, I don't think it's ripe, and I don't think I am fully qualified to do that, because we have yet to receive the official reports
Mm-hmm.
in terms of turnover, in terms
Mm-hmm.
of user friendliness and complaints from its users, because I
Mm-hmm.
myself, I'm not a user, I am
Uh-huh.
not the I'm not the target voter for
Uh-huh.
internet voting, so I'm not qualified yet
Uh-huh.
to provide an analysis or to
Mm-hmm.
provide comments and recommendations on how to move forward with it. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess we would have to wait
Mm-hmm.
for the official reports, for the official data in terms of turnover, user friendliness, number of complaints,
Uh-huh.
and even the bugs that were present, if there are,
Mm-hmm.
during the implementation of the online voting. But
Mm-hmm.
as of right now, what we can say, it's a good direction for the commission to actually and
Mm-hmm.
explore and implement the internet voting, because again, that's a good direction to uphold accessibility and inclusiveness in the modes of voting, because we all know that our fellow kababayans who are working abroad are really experiencing hurdles or
Yeah,
challenges in going
that's
to the
right.
embassies to actually vote, to go there and fill up their ballots and feed it into the machine. So now that
Mm-hmm.
we have internet voting, that could be a good direction. But also, as of right now, what we think that this authority, what we think that the commission should also look into again and reconsider
Mm-hmm.
is actually the legal mandates and the legal basis for
Mm.
implementing such the internet voting platform, because there could be a misalignment, or there could be a lack of a legal basis for
Mm.
fully implementing the internet voting platform. So that is something that the commission should look into again and reconsider,
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, legal we should never think of, I mean, it's always legal hurdles are always present.
Yeah.
But I guess if we want to uphold accessibility, we would want to uphold inclusiveness in terms of letting our fellow kababayans be able
Uh-huh.
to exercise their right to suffrage. It's a worthy exercise. It's a worthy
Mm-hmm.
track which the commission should dive into after these elections, just so all their efforts of
Mm-hmm. Right.
exploring and even talking to suppliers and fully implementing it at that will not go to waste. So
Mm, that's right.
maybe aside from making sure that all the complaints, all the bugs, all the user experience problems that were experienced
Mm-hmm.
by our fellow kababayans, right, that are being experienced by our fellow kababayans
Mm.
right now, on top of that is actually to reconsider the
Uh-huh.
legal basis and the legal mandates of our overseas voting laws.
Okay. All right. Well said. And leave it to that, Attorney Helen, as we go along with that issue on online voting. Okay. So anyway, May 12 is fast approaching, and so
Mhm.
poll surveys becomes frequent. So how should voters take this surveys that are coming out days before election? Since election surveys are coming out from a different survey companies, so how should voters take that?
Okay, I think the first thing that every voter should do whenever you encounter survey results or posts about the top grossing senators, or top
Mm.
senators, top candidates, is actually look into who did or who conducted the survey,
Yeah.
because that is where the integrity and the credibility of the results should be coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from the results, we invite our voters to actually look into the entities or into the groups who are actually conducting the survey.
Uh-huh.
If you can go further, you can look into the methodology, what is the scope of that survey, and if
Mm-hmm.
that post is actually legitimate, if it's actually true,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not meant to misinform or disinform the voters. So before looking, or maybe we should not stop at face value. Maybe we should not just look at the top 10 or the top 12, at least
Uh-huh.
for the senators. We invite our voters to go deeper
Mm-hmm.
into how surveys are actually structured, how surveys are actually done, and why it should matter in the process of your decision making process in selecting your candidates.
Okay. But sometimes, Attorney Helen, surveys are being commissioned by the survey company itself. So how? So how?
Yes, yes.
So.
Yeah, so actually, in terms of commissioning of surveys, that would give you information in
Mm-hmm.
terms of the possibility of biases, because commission surveys could be commissioned by anyone,
Mm.
as long as you have the funds, because these survey companies are actually private companies. They are for profit companies. So
Mm-hmm.
anyone can actually commission surveys. So
Yeah.
that's
That's right.
why our voters would have to look deeper, and what is the source, what is the background of the survey, who is actually conducting the survey, even before we get to believe or consider the results that are being posted online, that
Mm-hmm.
are being peddled online. Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, moving on to another topic, Attorney Helen. So this one is very controversial because Bangsamoro election has been moved uh, initially it will be conducted alongside with the midterm election that will happen on May 12th. But under a new law that was signed by President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., it will be moved by October 13th. So, despite that, how Lente is preparing for this Bangsamoro election, since this is the first time that the region will elect a new leader, or elect new leaders rather.
Okay. In terms of the postponement and it's the propriety of it, actually, I would like to put this on record that Lente has always been a staunch oppositor of such postponement because it goes against the right of the voters, of the constituents, to periodic elections.
Mm-hmm.
Because these leaders have been appointed for 6 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
um, and and it is but right for the voters to already be given the opportunity to elect the new set of leaders that they want their
Mm-hmm.
BARM government to be to for the positions in the BARM government to be filled up in the parliament.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then moving on to preparation, actually Lente has always been a close follower and partner of the BARM government in terms of electoral reform. Lente has been has been with has been in the scene in the scene in BARM
Mm-hmm.
as early as the early composition of the Transition
Yeah.
Authority. We
Mm-hmm.
are with them when they were learning how to create laws,
Yeah.
particularly creating their own electoral code. So we
Mm.
really put in our effort, we really put in our energy to be with them, to be in partnership with them in drafting and deliberating and actually advocating for innovative parts of the electoral code of the BARM. And we are also still here when in drafting the implementing rules and regulations
Mm-hmm.
of the electoral code of BARM. So if you would ask us about preparation, actually we have been working with BARM. We have been working for BARM, particularly on its electoral and governance reforms
Uh-huh.
ever since 2019.
Yeah.
So we are ready. We will just be tapping our volunteers for October 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And we will be just resuming our usual program for monitoring. So there will be a general
Mm-hmm.
monitoring for vulnerable sectors, and even the time and motion study. But of course, this will be a
Mm-hmm. Okay.
different game because we will be monitoring a parliamentary election. So it's
Yeah.
very different to
Mm.
compared to a presidential election.
All right.
So there.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. Since Bangsamoro, it's a their form of government is different from the national government, which is the presidential style of government.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Yes, correct, correct.
Okay, got it. Okay, so okay, I'm down to my last question, Attorney Helen. I'm sorry we don't have much time, but first I would like to ask this question. So, regarding the disinformation and the use of artificial intelligence in the electoral process, so how Lente is monitoring on this? So, do you see the need to file or to inform our lawmakers regarding this technology, and do you see and also do you see the need to file legal actions against those individuals deliberately spreading false information online and misusing AI technology in this election season?
Okay. With regard to social media, Lente is currently and has been conducting a social media monitoring program. So our social media monitoring started from manually looking into social media posts, articles online, but now it has evolved into using and utilizing social listening tools. So those are already in place right now. Those are already working and actually helping us gather data when it comes to looking into different issues, as we are trying to cast the net as wide as possible. So we are looking into vote buying, vote selling, abuse of state resources, election violence, and
Mm-hmm.
even illegal campaign actions or illegal campaign practices.
Mm-hmm.
So we are looking into that right now, and we are actually taking advantage of the technology of social listening tools that are already available to us, because
Mm-hmm.
that would help us optimize
Yeah.
our resources, especially our time, so that when we come up with the report and we come up with the data, it will be complete, it will be holistic in terms of
Mm-hmm.
the platforms that are being covered, so we know and we can be sure of ourselves that we are not missing out on anything, and that we are not just looking into articles that only achieve a viral, I mean, that's what we usually term it, like a viral level. So
Uh-huh.
we don't go just on the surface. And then in terms of artificial intelligence, of course we always believe in moving with the times and adapting to what is right in front of us, what is being practiced on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So we, of course, we never took on an alarmist approach when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to artificial intelligence, because it will always be there, it will evolve even faster than we think. So what
Mm-hmm.
is important for us is to actually keep ourselves abreast. Like what does artificial intelligence can actually do at this moment in time? So what and how it can be
Mm-hmm.
used or misused by some entities in terms of, I mean, to use it as a tool for disinformation, misinformation. So it's best for us to actually keep ourselves updated on that, so that
Mm-hmm.
when we do our social media monitoring, we won't get surprised. We won't be surprised about the extent of, or if ever, if the extent of the damage that it can do, or the
Mm-hmm.
extent of the reach that it can do on its own. So right now, that's what we are doing. We are
Mm-hmm.
listening, using technology actually to
Mm-hmm.
gather
Right.
data, and then eventually forming a snapshot, forming
Mm-hmm. Right.
complete snapshot of the social media arsenal of the Philippines when it comes to election.
Okay, and that will be very helpful to at least to lessen the burden of the workloads that Lente has in that your organization
Yes.
has.
Yes, and actually, we also believe in tapping partnerships
Mm-hmm.
with the social media platforms themselves. So we are actually we
Mm-hmm.
have a partnership with Meta.
Yep.
So Meta owns Facebook and Instagram. We are also in partnership with TikTok or
Uh-huh. Right.
ByteDance. So
Mm-hmm.
actually, if you follow our social media channels, we have regular podcasts and regular learning sessions with
Mm-hmm.
our social media partners, because
Mm-hmm. Right.
that's how we can actually learn from them, and how we can actually use their own platforms, their own
Okay.
community rules to
Okay.
go against those who maliciously use the platforms
Mm-hmm.
to misinform or disinform
All right.
voters and supporters of other camps. So I guess
Mm-hmm.
about your question about prosecution,
Uh-huh.
there are actually tools inside the social media platforms themselves that we can use
Okay.
to go against those who would be using these platforms to disinform or
Okay.
misinform voters.
All right, all right, okay, okay. So I'm running out of time. Okay, but short. I would just to get your short message for this midterm election, Attorney Helen. The floor is yours.
Okay. Yeah. For everyone, I hope we can use this. We can use the remaining the last few days before election to actually get to know more about the candidates within your district. Your right to vote. Your vote is your voice. Everyone would have that voice on May 12th. And please let's not waste it. We have the time. We have the internet to actually research about these candidates. Support whoever aligns with your advocacy, and support whoever you think will have the right mindset or the right
Mm-hmm.
disposition in
Mm-hmm.
terms of governance. You always deserve We
Uh-huh.
always deserve good leaders and honest leaders.
Uh-huh.
So, and we hope that you can report, for example, if you've seen instances of vote buying and vote selling or abuse of state resources or even election violence,
Okay, okay.
our social media channels on Facebook, Instagram, and X are all open for reporting. You can just search Lente Philippines.
Okay. All right. And with that, thank you so much for joining us in the program. Attorney Helen Graido, the policy consultant for technological and policy reforms of the Legal Network for Truthful Elections, or Lente. Thank you, Attorney Helen. Until next time.
Thank you.
All right. And with that, that concludes this edition of Front and Center, together with Radyo Pilipinas World Service production team and technical personnel. This is your host, Jerome Toledo. Until next time, mabuhay. Love the Philippines.
You have just heard and watched Front and Center. Front and Center. Join us again for another edition here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Front and Center.